Welcome, everyone. I'm Eileen Buckley, senior reporter at WBFO, and thank you so much for joining our conversation with Buffalo Public Schools Superintendent Dr. Kriner Cash for a conversation about the state of public schools. And joining us is Buffalo News education reporter Tiffany Lankus. We are here today to talk to Dr. Cash. And Dr. Cash, we have some questions from Tiffany and I, and we will also be taking many from both Facebook and Twitter. So we want to get to as much as possible in the next 40 minutes to an hour with you. So thank you both for being here today in our studios, and to our Facebook audience for joining us. Dr. Cash, you have created the new education bargain. It of course calls for parents to be engaged and accountable in their students' learning. And you've also been involved with the synergy of the new 13 community schools and the opening of these schools on weekends for students and families to come together at many events. How is it working so far?
Well, it's off to a great start, Eileen, and I'm really excited about what we're seeing primarily from the community itself, from the parents and the children and all the people coming in on the Saturdays and the after-school programs. It's just really, really exciting to see. My wife and I get out when we can. I've been to probably a half dozen of these events, particularly on Saturday, and I think it's really, really off to a terrific start. It actually exceeds my expectations at this point.
What are the parents saying to you?
The parents are saying, coming up, looking me right in the eye and saying, we are so thankful and blessed that you have this idea and have opened these schools to the community. It's exactly what we wanted and needed, and we really are appreciative of it. And they show it by coming out. We have over 20,000 repeat, but over 20,000, 70% are not repeat people, and they are showing up with their feet, and the next step is to make sure that they enroll and show with their feet that they are taking back their community school.
Now, some of those community schools, I believe, are at the ones that were deemed in receivership, correct?
Most of them.
So could you talk a little bit about how that strategy is working to make those improvements at those schools? Because obviously the number of schools that were placed in receivership has come down since you've come to the district. Yeah. So maybe you could talk a little bit about what's happening there and those improvements.
Well, receivership, contrary to some of the beliefs out there, is we do have management rights. I do have management rights in 15 schools. And the community schools were designed specifically to not only be in high-stress neighborhoods, high-poverty neighborhoods, but to also be overlap with my receivership schools. So there's a good alignment there. These schools were either on their way out and in some cases closed. We're going to be closed, even talking about being closed, like East High School and Bennett High School and the like. And we said, no, no, no. You have beautiful, beautiful architectural edifices here in Buffalo, $1.4 billion renovation program over the past 11 years. You can't close any of these schools. You need to repurpose them, reimagine them, and that's what we've done. And to the benefit of the community, you're seeing revitalization and renewed interest now in these schools, and they're being used for full service, full wraparound activities, from academic activities, health and wellness activity, social cycle, emotional support activity, and a whole host of other things, including adult education and the like. So the receivership has a multi-pronged strategy. This was a big part of it, but it's also to make sure that we get the best teachers in these community schools, because if we're going to lift the participation rate, we need to lift the academic quality and the enrichment there. They also needed to have the best leaders that I could possibly place in these schools. So leaders and the leadership team I've restructured in most of the receivership schools. So the best teachers, the best principals, the community engagement, open them up from 7 to 7, and include a continuing education and a parent center component in the 4 high schools that are community schools. We're baking it. We're baking it. It's not completely done yet, but we certainly are well on our way.
So it sounds like really front-loading a lot of resources beyond the academics into the schools where the students have those needs.
If I started to tell you all of the things that are going on in these schools, you would say they're second to none in terms of enrichment and activity to private schools, to charter schools, to the suburban schools, your elite schools, whatever you consider that to be, those things are now happening in our community schools in terms of opportunity.
On that note, we had an early question come in from one of my Twitter followers, Chris, and she was curious to know, you know, kind of what the district is doing and what the plans are in the future to make sure the parents and the community really know about these programs you're talking about so that they can come and fully participate. She mentioned specifically the website, so maybe you could talk a little bit about the communication efforts.
Well, yeah, well, certainly one that I was very proud and pleased with, where we had partnership with Say Yes, as we often do, and that included a brochure that we sent out to the whole district, and every person who had a mailing address received a glossy community schools brochure that described the main elements of the new education bargain and where to sign up, where to come, where they're located, and so forth. So we have a multipronged approach to communicating about all of what we're doing, particularly the new education bargain. You can find it online at the district's website. You can find it in every school. There's information about the new education bargain. There's posters, and there are brochures about the community schools. And then, of course, you can see it in some of the articles that have been written. We keep those posted online as well, so you can read about it. And call us anytime, and we're available.
Would you recommend parents call the child's school directly, or is there an office at central office they should be in contact with if they have questions?
They can call the main office. I mean, they could always call the main switchboard, get my office. My assistants are well prepared and ready to direct the call to wherever they need to be. Certainly the school is a natural first start for finding out about this. And then we're developing kiosks, 4 major kiosks, really 5, one for each parent center, where you go in and it'll give you everything you need to know about the district on these interactive kiosks that are also translated into 10 top languages for the district. And then as central registration. Central registration is also a key place for all the information about the district.
I want to remind our Facebook audience to please send in your questions for Dr. Kriner Cash right now, if you can, and we are going to get to many that have already come in. But I wanted to still ask you about the graduation rates. We've been seeing slight increases. I think it went from about 57 to 63% over the past year. 54?
64.
64. And what is truly next on the agenda for the city school district to keep those increments moving in even faster?
Well, it was 49% a little while ago, not too long ago. So, and you had dismal rates when you peel that back among certain populations of students. African American males, Hispanic males were in the 20s and 30%. So the graduation rate is an important indicator, there's no question. But more important than that is you graduate with a certificate degree, and then what do you know? What can you do? So I'm trying to do a both and, where we increase the graduation rate, but we're also increasing the preparation and preparedness of our students to take and enter good paying, gainfully employed jobs that are coming to this region over the next 10 years and are part of the Buffalo Renaissance. So I have aligned these new innovative high schools, which you've also heard about, those 7 new CTE programs, career and technical, alignments in each of those new 7 high schools or high school programs are really tremendous opportunities for our students. They weren't there a year ago. A year ago we had a lot of failing high schools and schools that could be called dropout factories. Now I'm going to turn those into high performing, highly prepared students for the 21st century economy. But they have to take advantage of it. It's part of the bargain with the student. The student has, and the parent has a responsibility. Sign up, look at what your interests are at this point, and get into a school that matches those interests, and you'll have a quality program to follow. So I'm really excited to have brochures here. These are all on the website as well. As you've heard, the research lab for bioinformatics and life sciences, the new blue economy at the Riverside High School, which takes advantage of the blue economy here in the local region, the Lewis J. Bennett High School for Innovative Technology, which has wonderful software and engineering programs, coding, digital design, graphic animation, networking and hardware, all things that we know are going to be exploding in the decade ahead in terms of career opportunities, occupational opportunities. Can't say enough about it. Solar Park at South Park, the career in cyber security, government and public administration, law, public safety, corrections. That is the new East High School, and on and on. The Virtual Pathways program, where kids make a mistake or fall off ramp, they got a chance and a way to get back on ramp, which I think is important, because if you have that narrow bandwidth, you know, kids today are trying to figure out what they want to do, and you need to have them have a way to get back on. So all of this is going on. The new Lafayette is a tremendous high school of international high school, we call it. And so I have brought all of those in to bring increased interest. When you increase interest and motivation, then you increase attendance and participation. And so I want our students to be fully engaged, fully present at their high schools going forward. No one in there with their head down and wish they weren't there, and why am I here, and this wasn't my first choice, so forth and so on. And tonight, I'll stop and give you some more chance to give some more questions in. But tonight, we make a decision on the new Emerson High School, which we're calling the Buffalo School for Culinary Arts and Hospitality Management, which is very exciting. And so we'll present that tonight, and that will be a 7th new option that wasn't there a year ago for our students. That's what increases the graduation rate. And we won't be satisfied until we get into the 90s, up into that rate, because not everybody, some people, do other things and have to have other responsibilities, go into the service and so forth. But we want to make sure that we have an opportunity for all students to graduate and be able to go to post-secondary or into the world of work. That's the key that we're bringing. That's what's changed.
You touched a little on attendance, and that's obviously been a problem here and in urban school districts all over the country. Since you've been here, do you feel like the needle has moved at all in that area?
No, I don't think the needle has moved where I'd like to see it move. I mean, 1 or 2 percentage points, but that's just incremental. I've said from the beginning, it's got to get into the 90s for both high school and elementary. I still am not quite figured out totally what the challenge is completely here for the attendance issue. It's the worst I've ever seen, and I've been around the country. And yet the opportunity is here. So what I expect, and it takes time to take that barge and turn that corner, but what I'm expecting is that when you have access, quality, and opportunity increased in every school in the district, then I expect that bargain to take place. I've done, and staff have done their part, which is provided that increased access, quality, and opportunity. Now it's up to parents and students to come to school, put a high premium on education, get to class, do their work, and respect the authority.
Do you think part of the issue is that the district does still bus kids all over? And I know you start to get into this difficult debate between neighborhood schools and school choice, and we did get some questions to that effect. But obviously, if you're a young child and your parent can't help you get to school for whatever reason, you may not show up.
Busing's a piece of it. I mean, they're not. It's challenging for a lot of students. There's no question. I won't say it's the cause, because there are other challenges, and certainly when I was growing up, my parents always told me that they walked 6 miles uphill and both ways, and snowstorms and blizzards and so forth. So there have always been challenges getting to school. If you look around the world, there are young children that are pushing their siblings to school, as much as 20 miles sometimes, and across the deserts and across jungles and so forth. I've seen it on documentaries. So the issue of getting to school starts with how much value you place on it. When kids and families want to go to other things, they get there. They figure out a way to get there. So you got to get to school. It's just, I'm not taking any excuses about that. But I will say that when you have 3 or 4 buses that you have to catch, and if that bus passes you by, or you're not able to get on it because it's too crowded, or for whatever reason, students often will say, well, I'm not going today. I'm not making the effort. So there's a piece of it. I'd say it's maybe 25–30% of the issue, but it's not 100% of the issue. At the end of the day, you got to get up earlier. You got to do what you got to do to get to school, just like all of us have to do. We have to do to get to work. Your job is going to school. That's your job when you're a young person.
But there is a lot of time spent for children on the buses itself, on the school buses.
Well,
they spend
that's true.
a great deal of time transporting back and forth.
Yeah, that's a different issue. That's an issue of what I call spilled or instructional time that they could be learning something relative to growing their skills and their interests and their talents. They're spending on a bus. And so what we're trying to do with the community school model is to encourage families to choose their community school because it's as good a choice as any other in the city. I'm still for school choice, no question about it, but I want you to understand that what you're choosing when you get on a bus and go all of that way may be not a better choice than what's nearby 2–3 blocks away. So we're trying to re-educate and get our young people, as you say, and families to see what the opportunities are, and then they can make an educated choice about it.
Continue to send in your questions and engage with Dr. Cash. We're going to one of them now, coming out of school choice and that issue. Gretchen from Buffalo asks, when will the district take steps to equalize access and programming by ending the neighborhood preferences for Olmsted and also mandating gifted and talented programs for all elementary schools?
Well, it started with a when. So a when question is a tough one because I don't know. What I can say is that, Olmsted is a good model now and has a lot of community and parent participation. It's a good school. And so until I hear sort of an overwhelming outcry from someone, meaning, the community members writ large, to change that, then as I've said since I've gotten here, if it's not broke, I won't fix it. That seems to be working there. As far as gifted and talented, I do believe in programs like that, although I like to, not to call them that necessarily. I think you need to have programs like that in every school, and I plan to try to ramp that up, starting with my priority schools.
There's been a number of questions too on Facebook about the class sizes and teacher-student ratios. So maybe you could talk a little bit about where the district is with meeting those class size priorities.
Right, it was a good question. When I first came about 18 months, well, 21 months ago actually, you had class sizes in the early grades continuum, which is pre-K through 3, that were just completely unacceptable when you have a challenged district in the first place. So if you have a challenged district with a lot of things that you need to improve, and then you have class sizes of 37, 38, 34, 32 in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and one teacher, and often a new teacher, a novice teacher, you weren't going to move anything very fast in a condition like that. So part of the matter of fact, the most important part of the new education bargain is that first tablet, that first element, which says rigorous early elementary education. And in that work, there are a number of objectives within that, but the main one is to reduce class size to 18 to 20 in pre-K, K, 1, and 2. And that's what you're seeing. You have that kind of class size right now existing in all of our priority schools. And across the district, some is a little higher, but nothing's over 25. And they're higher because of choice. And you have to create additional seats for those schools that are in good standing. So we're very pleased. That's one of our proudest accomplishments, the board and I, that we've been able to lower that class size significantly down into the 18 to 20 range in the earliest grades. And so that's being done. That is being done. And we have one more year and we'll be in third grade and have it down to 18 to 20. Next year coming, it's grade 2, and it's already in the budget, and we've already got a plan for it.
Speaking of pre-K too, Emily from Facebook writes in, she's looking forward to taking advantage of the pre-K programs next year. She wants to know, what can parents expect of the programs and curriculum, and do you anticipate the program continuing for local children given the budget proposals from the state ed department?
It's a really good concern and question from the caller or the writer. And I would say this, I would say that we're committed to universal pre-K. I'm really a fan of when we have it in our schools, and most of our K-8s have a pre-K component in it. So what you're going to see that's new and different, we're really excited about it, is you have that good ratio, you have assistants in the room helping with instruction, you have technology upgrades that are phenomenal. We are moving in very close to a 1-to-1 ratio with our preschoolers, having tablets and access to enrichment activities to begin and enable their reading and their literacy development and numeracy development. So these are all new. These are all new developments. So the pre-K experience, I would say, in Buffalo Public Schools right now is as good as any. It's enriched. It has we have good teachers. We put our best teachers in there. I believe in looping in the early grades with our best teachers so that the students can get a 2-year experience. So we do pre-K, K1, 1, 2 to loop with good teachers, and we're trying that in a number of our priority schools to good effect. So I'm excited about where we are now in terms of where the federal government and where the state government is going to go with supporting universal pre-K. We can only continue to lobby and push hard and show the evidence of why it's so important to get our young people off to that great literacy and numeracy start.
And the looping, just to kind of clarify, if people don't know, it's your same teacher for 2 years in a row, correct?
Same good teacher 2 years in a row. The research shows advances students by 2 to 4 years of advancement when you have a really great teacher for 2 years in a row.
And there's already a relationship. You don't have to spend time.
Rules and procedures and culture and climate are all established already, and you can stay on instruction.
We did get a question about music, specifically instrumental music, and obviously this has been a topic of conversation. So maybe you could explain for the audience how the district does allocate resources for music programs, you know, what's happening at the district level, what's happening at the school level, and why you may see more music in some schools and not others.
Well, it's an interesting question. You know, you have vestiges at this time of what was called the school-based empowerment model. And that was a time when every school kind of made their own decisions about things. They got a budget, they had an allocation, they had a community engagement team, and then they met and they decided on what they wanted with their allocation. And they would purchase this or they would trade off that and get 2 of these and 3 of those and so forth. So that was a model for a long time here in Buffalo. I've put into play a what's called an aligned theory of action between curriculum and all of the main, I think, enzymes that a school needs to go to the head of the class. But it takes a minute. It takes a minute because you have to have the funding and so forth. And in this funding era that we're in, where you have all this reliance on the state, some years you get a lucrative fund and people want things and the board make a decision on the 11th hour and you have it. And then another year will come and things will be cut and there'll be less funding and now you don't have it. So I'm trying to get some continuity into our schools about what I consider to be basics. And one of them is the arts. The arts, to me, should be in every school, and they should be equitable in every school, because I believe in early arts, music, vocal, dance, theater, and so forth. Now, I don't know what the perception is, but the fact is that we do have instrumental music in almost all of our schools. This data is clear right here. But you do then have these community-based teams that make decisions on to have more of that and maybe trade off for a vocal or an art and so forth. So it's not quite even or equitable across the board to what the caller or the writer said about 3 periods a week, you know. But we do have in most of the schools 1 to 2 periods per week of instrumental music. And in all schools we have a vocal and an art component.
We can post this later on the WBFO Facebook page. I think that would be helpful because there always seems to be some confusion
Right.
that something's getting cut in its entirety. And I think the Olmsted came up at a recent meeting I was at where one of those principals had actually opted for a math coach or some other
don't know.
position.
It was a school-based decision, not a district-based decision. That's the point that I'm making.
Laura from Buffalo wanted to know, when will the district take serious the evidence supporting the importance of recess and free play for development?
When will we?
Yes, that's what she's.
Do we not do
referring to.
that now? I'm not aware. I think we do have a lot of gym and period that was put in just 2 years ago with 40 PE teachers added to the budget. So everywhere I go, I see a gym program, what they call physical ed program, and then we have now after-school programs in every school, which has a physical education component to it. So there's opportunity, lots of opportunity for kids to get that additional physical engagement, which I think is important, physical activity in the school day. So we're doing that. It made leaps and bounds beyond what it was. But again, remember, these things get cut in cycles. What we're trying to do now, and that's why I ask for the money that I ask for, is to stabilize basic needs that the school district has. And we have a lot of things still in terms of guidance counselors, music, the arts, science, PE, history and social science and science are alternate instead of all the time in the curriculum. Just things that are way below what standard should be. So all of that needs to be upgraded, but it has to be funded.
But clearly separating the recess from the gym, because those are two different kind of times away
is
from.
what, going outside, you mean?
Yeah, if it's obviously the weather permitting, but
Well,
even
we
just a
went
break
outside
from.
for the first time this year in Buffalo. You're in Buffalo, so you're not going outside. You're going to be inside. That's a joke, Eileen. You got to loosen up a little bit. Loosen up. But we don't, recess and so forth. I mean, I don't know why you don't have recess here. What we have is PE and an opportunity for students to engage in physical exercise.
We have a question from Jason from Buffalo. Are you happy with the overall skill level of the teachers in Buffalo? And is there a plan for, his words, getting rid of teachers that are not improving or producing good results?
Wow. I mean, any organization can ask, are they happy with the overall skill level of the employees in their organization? From hospitals to police force to newspaper organizations and so forth. So overall, I think our teachers are dedicated, they're committed, they work hard. They wouldn't be doing the work in urban education just to do it. They're working hard. But you did have a period where they were left to their own devices, and that's why settling this new contract was so important to me, because you have to start fresh. You have to restart your relationship with teachers. You have to make sure that PD and professional growth and development becomes a priority again. And it is now a major priority, and we're also using it through the receivership powers to get our skill levels and our need levels up for teachers. Teaching is one of the most complex occupations today. When you have a school district with 90% of the students who have extraordinary needs, and you come out of graduate school and maybe you grew up in Williamsville or Amherst or Hamburg or somewhere, you need a whole fresh orientation about how to effectively teach with our children. So we're doing that with our professional development. So I'm overall pleased. Should there be people that need to go home? And there's always people that need to go home in any profession. But we have a strong union culture here in Buffalo. Probably 60% of the residents are in some kind of union.
And New York State has some of the strongest teachers unions.
Exactly. So it's not as easy as, you're fired. You have to go through processes and work with people. So I opt first to develop and work with people and try to develop skills. And then I'd say there's probably a 7%, 6% of the population where you try to take action. And I have taken much more aggressive action than any of the prior administrations on removing unfit staff, period, of whatever level they teach, teachers, administrators, whatever.
Could you maybe share with the audience what typically happens in those cases? Because I think this is an area with the whole 3028 process that people really don't know much about. So it may look like they're sitting here hearing you say some of them need to go, but they don't necessarily understand what happens when you do try to take that action.
Oh yeah, well, because you have rights to a position. You have rights to a job here in New York. There's a right to work state, and that means that you have to fire with cause, but then that cause has to be proven through arbitration and through a judge and through a long legal process. It doesn't just happen right away. Now you can put someone out on leave, but usually while they're out on leave, they're being paid, which is again a drain, because now you have to replace that person. You're paying twice. So it's a process, and we have had some recent happenings at the state level where you can put someone out for cause for 120 days without pay. If they assault or attack a child physically, things of that nature, you can do that. But it is in the main, the onus is on the district to prove the case, and many of the unions have arbitrators and judges that are favorable to the unions because they get appointed politically. You can understand how it works. So nonetheless, we're working hard, and I think the perception, though, that we somehow have a lot of bad teachers is inaccurate. We have mostly really, really good and dedicated teachers, but no child, particularly our children who need so much more, can afford to have any teacher that is performing below par.
Dr. Cash, it's almost impossible to not ask you about Carl Palladino and how it's been a distraction for the work that you're all doing in the district. The State Education Commissioner has set the date for his hearing for June 22nd. It will be held in Albany. Would you consider asking her to move it to Buffalo so that people can participate from the public perspective?
No, not at this point. I've taken a position from the beginning. I made my statement some board meetings ago about it, and because it's in the process, that's a very delicate process, I can't really comment on that case at all. That's now in the commissioner's hand, and it's up to her to do what she believes is best, and that's where it is.
And I assume you've been subpoenaed to be there as well?
Not yet. I have not.
Has it, though, truly been a distraction to some of the work at hand? You've had a lot of protests at some of the board sessions.
I can't comment on that.
We have still people coming in from Facebook, and we thank you for your comments to Dr. Cash. We have Sarah, who says, how are you working to recruit and help train teachers and teacher aides that are representative of the students in the public schools?
Well, it's a good question, I think, but again, in almost every position that we have, whether it's aides or assistants or teachers or administrators or staff in general, we need a greater and more diverse workforce than we have. So I look at it as a challenge overall, and I have strategies that we mounted for each of those different areas. I'm actually very pleased overall with where we are in terms of administrators. In the cabinet level, at the principal level, and at the assistant principal level, we have a good array of diversity, much more in line with what the population is. But the teacher ranks, the assistants and aides, it's a little more challenging. Now, I would say that most of our aides are of, a minority status, and so that is good. The instructional assistants or teacher assistants is what I'm trying to increase as well. So we're working with the state regents, for example. I know our regent, Dr. Catherine Collins, this is a priority for her, and so she's working on this issue. We're working with Buffalo State a little bit to try to provide some more streamlined options for our aides and assistants to be brought up to speed in what they need to know to be effective aides. But at the end of the day, you know, the community itself has to say, these are occupations that I would like to pursue. We can make it attractive, we can make it accessible, we can encourage and invite you to come, but you have to stand up and say that's a good occupation. Parents, it starts with parents. It starts with parents telling their children that I was a teacher, or your auntie was a teacher, or whoever in the family, and it's still a great occupation. Get into it even if it's at the level of, and then see what you might like to do. I'm not sure our parents are telling their young people that that's what they should do. I know certain cultures and ethnic groups, it's still a big deal to be a teacher, and so that's where you have that continuous legacy. But I'd like to see it happen more in our new American culture and in our African American and Hispanic communities, to encourage their young people to go into education.
Do you think the colleges, both locally and elsewhere in the country, are doing an adequate job preparing young people to go into an urban classroom? You've touched on some of the very complicated issues students are dealing with, trauma, multiple languages, and it just doesn't always seem like that's part of the curriculum. And so if you are someone who grew up in Williamsville and you do end up in the profession, are you ready to really take on these challenges that the students have?
Short answer is no. I've known that and seen that for a long time, since from Miami to now, and so it's not an either or. It's going to have to be a 2 or 3 part process to get ready, and that process includes, yes, you do need some formal education and training, hopefully by really good professors or educators at the higher ed level. But then you need you need more practica and pre-practica, which I don't see enough of in the training programs. And then you need some in-service training. You won't learn about how to help Buffalo children until you get into the Buffalo schools. It's just not taught. You can't learn it in higher education or in those experiences. You got to get in and have the training. That's why the professional development menu and training that I'm offering, or we're offering, is much more robust now. And it focuses on the urban child and the various needs that we have been talking about. And then the third part is your first 3 to 5 years. You need 5 years to get baked into this profession. And you're a novice for at least that amount of time. And so though we're making sure that the induction and those first 3 years of in-service is much more structured and supported. You get the support you need with a mentee or a mentor, coach kind of a relationship. So those are things that weren't here again, and I'm bringing them in to improve that experience for our teachers.
Dr. Cash, another question came in from Sam Herbert from Buffalo. He wants to know the status of fixing school bus cameras and increasing the number of bus aides. He had cited an incident in the past.
Well, as I've said on his show and elsewhere, we're always trying to hire more aides, because it's not, we don't have good success going that way. We get some on and then some leave, and then some on and some leave, and it's a revolving door. It's hard to get them online and into the space. So we have, I believe we have adequate funds to do it, and we're doing it daily to bring new on. But I would encourage, as we speak, to come and sign up to be a bus aide if you're interested, because we really have a shortage of interest in that field. But it's more than just having bus aides. If we're talking safety, then we need better training, and we need a bench. We need to have a bench so that any given day someone is out on their route, then we can quickly put in someone else, and we just don't have that. It's just not a systemic, effective system right now. So we're working with multiple partners to improve that.
Speaking of partners, we have another question from Jason in Buffalo, and he would like to know how local businesses, families in the community, and other people who are interested can support, mentor, and help students in the Buffalo schools. Are there opportunities out there for people who would like to volunteer?
Absolutely. We really encourage that, and thank you, Jason, for that offer. We have a number of programs that have volunteer capabilities, and then mentoring. We're always looking for mentoring at the local school level. Principals are looking for it. We look for seniors who are preparing to go to college, one-on-one mentoring. We already have a program in place like that that Say Yes helps us with. And then many of our children could use a really good mentor. So we're going to put online how to sign up for that. But the commitment is, for it to work, and the research suggests this, it needs to be for at least 1 year and at least 2 hours per week. And that's minimum. Otherwise, the instability and incongruity with the young person actually has a negative effect than a helpful effect. So it's a big commitment, but we encourage it, and we're going to make it a website way of getting involved.
That sounds like a new initiative. I don't remember hearing anything so structured like that.
No, that one is. But
okay.
we have the senior, we have grandparent, what we call foster grandparents through Catholic Charities. They do some really nice volunteer work for us. And we have a couple of programs where we have adults in the school helping one-on-one or in small groups. They've been here for a while. But I'm thinking of a larger, because we need a bigger boat for this issue. It's just launching. Stay tuned. Okay.
Another question had come in earlier from Kire from Buffalo, and wanted to know, will you consider returning neighborhood schools so parents don't have students in different schools? I know we kind of touched a little bit on some things of that regarding schools and school choice and neighborhood schools.
Well, that's what the community school model is. Community schools are there for everyone living in that community. And when we look at our city, north, east, west, and south, there are high poverty zip codes with 50–60% more high poverty. We placed, and they often have, frankly, violence issues associated with those communities through gangs and other kinds of things. So that was the genesis of why a lot of families put their children on the bus, was for safety. So we understand that. And so in the community schools effort, we're trying to also work with police and the mayor and other partners to say, let's make these communities safe. Again, safe passage to and from, door to door, through a walking school bus kind of initiative, through the Common Council, who was helpful and supportive of this idea, where they would get people looking out their windows and, making sure that our young people were getting to school safely. We get that we get that done, I think that many more people will start to sign up for their community school and their neighborhood school.
Do you feel like the city and the police have been good partners in trying to address the crime in the city? Obviously, it's one of the major issues that students deal with, and Eileen's been around for a while. I've been here a couple years. I can't say I honestly heard people talking a whole lot about that issue until you got here. So is the city taking that seriously enough, that these kids are walking through, as you noted, gang-infested neighborhoods to get to school, and leaving one neighborhood and going to another may not help that problem?
Well, I mean, it's a complex question. I mean, I think the mayor and I absolutely get it, and we're working together. But of course, public safety is priority one for any mayor and for any police chief. So I feel I know they know that they're doing the best job that they feel that they can. What I simply say is, for the child who is experiencing, for the family who is experiencing, it's still not safe enough for them. And so we want to just keep at that, just like graduation rate. We can be pleased that it's higher than it was, but we can't be satisfied that there's still 36% that aren't graduating. So it's that kind of thing with any effort. We just work together, and let's make sure that children, in fact, can walk safely to and from school, that parents feel and have the perception that their neighborhoods and their communities are safe and rid of some of these influences. And then we can, celebrate together. But that's a never-ending thing. You just got to keep working on it. And you can celebrate small successes on that. But what I see every day and what I know to be sort of the clamor of why or what won't make your education plan work at the end, Doc, is unless you deal and address this safety issue in our high poverty and zip codes where our community schools are. That's why I put them there, so that we can begin to do that work together, make those schools the epicenter of their communities, and say we're going to take back our school. We're going to reclaim it. It's our school. It's our community, our neighborhood, and we're not getting on a bus and running away from it. We're going to stake our claim and make them strong again. That's really exciting, and I think the mayor and all of us can be proud if we get that accomplished.
Another issue that relates to the neighborhood schools, and we did have a question on Twitter, is the segregation piece. Obviously, you know, there's a high level of segregation, not just within the city school district, but in the entire county.
Yeah.
You've worked all over the country in a number of different systems. So kind of what's your perception of the segregation issue here, and is there a way to make the schools more integrated and equitable?
Well, segregation is a complex kind of an issue. Schools usually are a microcosm of the rest of the society. And I've been in Buffalo now almost 2 years, and I see segregation in a number of things. I've gone to many churches. They're segregated. I go to shop at Wegmans and Tops. Tops is segregated. Wegmans is pretty much segregated, probably more integrated than Tops, but it's hardly, you know, you can see the distinct difference, and they're right down the street from one another. And then businesses, you know, if you go into some of these businesses and hospitals and banks and so forth, there's highly segregated workforces. So that is, I don't know, it's become a way of life in Buffalo. So schools are going to reflect that largely. But I do think that we're more integrated than many of these other institutions. And so what I'm going to do is simply say that I believe in a well-integrated society. I believe in a school system that should be at the table with all of the people who live in our city. And the more we're together and learning from one another, the greater we're going to be in the end. So I'm going to do my part about it. The mayor has made a pledge called the Unity Pledge, Opportunity Pledge. So he certainly agrees with integrating workforces and so forth. But that's a continuous effort, and you have to take the politics out of it and just say you believe in it, and you have to really live it. It is more about you being the change you seek. And that's what I'm here to be. I'm the lead ambassador for the city, so I have to sort of reflect and model that in everything that I do, and that's what we're trying to do.
Dr. Cash, and students are often obviously given a grade for their academics. Where would you give yourself a letter grade from A to F as you kind of hit the halfway point of being here in the city of Buffalo for the district?
Well, I still have a little bit more to go to get to the halfway point, because I plan at least 5 years, and we could do more depending on where we are as a city and community and everything. But I always am trying to improve. So I'd give my grade it's good progress, but still in need of improvement. So I would say something like a B at this point.
Well, we want to thank you so much, and Tiffany Lenkus from the Buffalo News, the education reporter, Dr. Kriner Cash, the Buffalo Schools superintendent, and thank all of you for helping us out on our live Facebook chat. The live conversation is going to end, but you can continue it, keep the conversation going, and thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. My pleasure. Really enjoyed it.